essentially flat, and that total growth, the top line, is being driven by China. It's completely clear. And so that's a challenge not only with volume, but also with the language, because if you're like me, you don't read Chinese too well. Technology convergence is another kind of factor driver that we're seeing. And so a couple of examples of that. Just recently, you'll have read about the use of DNA as an information storage medium. DNA is essentially a code. It's a sequence of amino acids. And so you can essentially take that and construct a piece of DNA which is encoding information. And so that means that for people like Seagate and Western Digital, they maybe need to hire some biologists to be on the team. Self-driving cars. So there's a whole slew of different technologies, imaging, artificial intelligence, and so on, that comes to bear on that. And as a consequence of that, actually, I think something which we're all familiar with, this idea of classification lagging behind technology development, because it takes a little while for classification to catch up with new developments. That, I think, is accelerating. This is for artificial intelligence, so indexing for that was introduced in 2015, but if you do keyword searching, you can find examples of that going back way before then. And so, there's a challenge there in keeping up to date with that. And altogether, I think that the real challenge that faces us in prior art searching particularly is this idea of the volume and sheer weight of information that we have to go through. And it's all down to Title 35, the novelty section, Section 102, which says that the claimed invention, a person shall be entitled to a patent unless the claimed invention was patented, described in the printed publication, and so on. It means that we now have to search through more than 100 million patent documents, more than 70 million scientific papers, 16.1 zettabytes of data as of 2016. Heaven knows what that is now. Probably double, even triple, maybe. So that's a real challenge. And so I think, in this room, all of us together, we need some help. And so I'm going to turn it over to Paul to talk about AI and how that might be able to help face some of those challenges.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Now I have the challenge of following Bob as a speaker, which is not enviable. But in the next section, what I'm going to do is talk about AI, as Bob just said, how we can use it to address some of our challenges. I'm also going to talk about some other industry trends that we're seeing right now. Now, AI today is everywhere. It's been a major trend in the PIUG conference so far. I mean, it's been mentioned in pretty much every session so far, all around us, but it's being used to solve a lot of different problems today. So we're seeing it from being applied to cures for diseases, to self-driving cars, and of course to our industry. There's a lot being discussed in the area of AI by a lot of different experts and different thought leaders. If we look, and I think there's a lot of discussion on both sides as well, positive and negative. If you look to Elon Musk, for example, he's had a lot to say on both sides. He's talked about, first of all, the risks and his concerns of runaway AI if it's not managed and created properly. But of course, he also sees the huge potential impacts that AI can have for his own businesses, for example, which are going to largely be built on it. So we have a video clip that we want to show right now, which, hold on one second, which talks about where Elon Musk is talking about a company called or a product called AlphaGo. And AlphaGo was created by Google. And what AlphaGo is, this was the first computer program to beat a human professional Go player. And Go, if you're not aware of, it's an ancient board game. So if we could play that clip now.
And the rate of improvement is exponential. You can see this things like AlphaGo, which went from, in the span of maybe 6 to 9 months, it went from being unable to keep a really good Go player to then being the European World Champion, which ranked 600, then being at least the full 5, World Champion for many years, then being the current World Champion, then being everyone, all things simultaneously. Then there was AlphaZero, which crushed AlphaGo 100 to 0. And AlphaZero just learned by playing itself. And it can play basically any game that you put the rules in. Whatever rules you get, just literally read the rules, play the game, and you see the
So Elon Musk, another tough speaker to follow. But basically what he talks about and what is important is just the way that these systems can learn over time and improve over time, and often improve a system faster than humans alone could improve that system. Now, AI today is being applied to many, many different industries and many more. And the next clip we're going to show, Andrew Ng talks about how AI could be seen as the next electricity. So if we could play the next clip from Andrew Ng.
So some people might have heard me say before this phrase that AI is the new electricity. And what I mean by that is about 100 years ago, we didn't have widespread access to electricity here in the United States, but with the rise of electricity that transformed every major industry. Agriculture was transformed through the rise of refrigeration, communication was transformed through the telegraph, manufacturing was transformed through the electric motor, healthcare was transformed. It's all of these industries give a hard time imagining how to run these things without electricity. I think that AI technology, especially deep learning, as Laura was saying, has now advanced to the point where we see a nicely clear path for it to also transform every major industry.
Yeah, and what's important there is if we look at AI in that way and it becomes a type of almost comparable to the way electricity is today, AI can then be used to power really any applications where you need it to solve any problem. So of course, the impact becomes very broad to many, many different industries, of course, which will include our own as well. Which brings us to the next clip, which is Tom Fleischmann. And Tom Fleischmann works with IBM Watson. And in this case, Tom uses IBM Watson specifically for the IP industry. And at IBM, they refer to AI not as artificial intelligence, but as augmented intelligence, because they do believe that human interface is still extremely important. So if we could play this next clip. Try the third time. If that's the best we can get, we'll take that one. That's fine. All right. Okay, so artificial intelligence, it's a technology, of course, that has been seen as having a lot of promise for decades now. It's just now getting to a point where it's really starting to have an impact. Part of the reason that it has had so much potential is again, its ability to take very, very large amounts of data and find trends and insights very quickly, much easier than was previously possible. Because of this, the impact to the IP industry could be very significant. I mean, you have an industry that was traditionally powered by paper and manual review, lengthy decision making. So when you can take something like AI, it could really help to simplify day-to-day tasks. There's a few areas in particular that we can use as examples. First of all, document processing. So intelligent translations, intelligent summarization, also classification and indexing. Think back to what Bob was talking about with converging technologies. It's something I'll talk about in just a minute, but AI can really help with the problems posed by converging technologies. Search and analysis has been a big topic of discussion today already in a number of sessions. Obvious there. Also, insight. One thing that AI is really good at is finding relationships between seemingly unrelated data points, much quicker and easier than otherwise would be possible. So if you can get on top of that, you of course have a competitive advantage in terms of market movements and filing trends and so forth. And then docketing. This is a really obvious application because you have a system here that is an expert at taking very large amounts of data and accurately processing it quickly. So docketing, a really good application of that. Now, everything today is connected. So because of that, everything could potentially be impacted by this for the better. But we have a lot of different domains and industrial areas today that are high tech that I guess maybe a few decades ago we wouldn't have thought about them that way. I mean, you think of agriculture, for example, which is now a high tech industry. Now, because of that, you have a much more interconnectedness between a lot of different industries that may not have been before. This is going to have a big impact on the way we work, the way we live, and we're already seeing that. Now, there's a benefit to this, and one is easier access to data and to results, which then brings many more individuals basically into really the process of innovation that was possible before. So you have a lot more people who can get involved in innovation. And this is where we'll come to our next clip, but basically, and we could have just asked Lucy probably to come up here and talk, but instead we recorded her. But basically, the challenges that we just talked about is when we have these trends happening with all these interconnected domains and disciplines and all this data that's being produced, of course we have challenges now. How do we work with it? How do we search it? How do we find anything in here? So we're going to play this next clip where Lucy will talk about some of the challenges and also what she thinks could be done.
Hi, my name is Lucy Andrews. I'm a writer and time-searching analyst with DuPont's nutrition and health business. And I have a few thoughts on the future of patent analytics tools. I hope that there will be more pressure put on patent offices to standardize ownership information to make it easier for us to study company activity. Also, more pressure to standardize legal status information because we always need to know whether applications are alive or dead. And also pressure to standardize patent family information because so that we can be sure that we have all relevant family members for an application. In the future, there will be more value in collecting all the patent data from various offices around the world as it will shrink due to increased communication. There will also be many more patent analytics tools sprouting up. Simplicity and artificial intelligence will win the race because people do not like complicated interfaces. Thank you.
So the good news is that there's already a lot happening today, which is good. And there's a lot of different solutions that are being developed by various innovative organizations. You have organizations like IBM Watson, and you have a lot of things that were discussed here and haven't been. You have PatSnap, Anography, PatentSite, just to name just a very few. Of course, you have Derwent. We're going to talk about ourselves, of course. We had our workshops over the weekend where we talked about some of the innovations we're working in this area. But all of these are bringing forward solutions recently that are really a combination of ease of use, automated intelligence, so sort of automatic calculations, as well as true AI. We're seeing some solutions that are coming out, like AI-powered drafting tools, playbooks, automated indicators, advanced search tools. And this is really changing the way that people work with patent information. And what it's also doing is it's creating an interest in IP and patent information from people who maybe weren't exposed to it in the past. So you have almost a new generation of users who is now interested because it's much more accessible than it once has. So in the next section, and my last section of this, I'm going to talk about, with this easier access to this data and some other trends basically that are happening, what else can we expect to see? So while we have these AI systems being developed, we're also having this trend of converging technologies that Bob talked about. And technology convergence is really everywhere around us today. I mean, all you have to do is think of your smartphone that's in your pocket, and it's a combination of camera, phone, internet, GPS, motion sensors, everything in one device. Your cars today are a very good example of that as well. Now, technology convergence can cause challenges for the patent searcher and the patent analyst because, for one reason, you have indexing, traditional indexing and classification schemes that just can't keep up. You're going to have technology convergence is going to happen before a classification can be created to describe that newly converged technology. So you're always going to have a phasing issue between the two. So this is one area as well that new technology and AI can be applied to help. And there's been some solutions already, such as clustering, different types of clustering tools, sort of on-the-fly classifications. We're also starting to see some solutions come out with AI-created ontologies as a way of helping to solve this problem. Now, while this is all happening, and there's of course a lot happening in our industry right now, what we're finding is organizations are becoming flatter at a lot of companies. And responsibilities are being shared more evenly across organizations, and this is causing some change. We have patent departments just simply can't support everybody. And in a lot of ways, patent departments, patent specialists, information professionals are being asked to apply or be used for strategic projects, especially as IP is becoming more known within a lot of companies, and then the C-level especially. You have C-levels in organizations that are just much more aware of the value of patent content that was true before. So in a lot of ways, patent specialists and what they can bring are being used there. Now, this is one driver behind the next generation of patent users that's often talked about, is that you have a lot of users who have to do work on their own today, and they have to perform some level of patent search and analysis on their own. And so what we're finding is that solutions that offer time savings and automation are much more valued today. Those are considered highly valuable solutions. And what we're finding is that a lot of platforms are transforming themselves to meet those needs, and we're also starting to see a real increase in the number of entrants of new players into this market. Now, another trend we're seeing is with workflow, because I think workflow is seen as a possible way of solving some of these challenges. And we're starting to see some very focused workflow solutions. You can look at a provider such as Xlpat, which offers really focused workflow in FTO and novelty. And what they're attempting to do is sort of automate and create a standard process, a standard workflow for very specific use cases. Now, this is a response basically to the problem that we just talked about. Users more and more need solutions that provide an answer to a question as quickly as possible, or at least a path to an answer as quickly as possible. And I think what we're also starting to see next is it's not just a path and sort of guiding you, you then layer in AI to actually help provide an answer in a way, and an automated insight, an automated interpretation. So I think what we're going to see now is the next step in this trend, if we look at all of these types of things together, is really bringing people into the equation as well, because people are definitely not going to be lost in this process, and that's something that Tom Fleischmann talked about with the augmented intelligence. People are still critical, and especially with these flat, increasingly flat organizations, it's really important that we connect people together for various reasons. And in some case, it might be to share your results. In some cases, it's actually to help find an answer to something. So how can people basically find one another, find the right person? I think with workflow, we're probably going to see some consolidation. And I don't just necessarily mean organizations consolidating, but just more interconnectedness between workflows, so you can create more of a end-to-end solution, solutions that are sort of playing with one another. Also, what's becoming important and important with this trend with workflow is looking at it as a way of scaling your organization. One thing to think about, there's a lot of organizations today that offer professional services around the world. And one way that you can look at a professional service is it can create scale for you. I mean, if we look at technology, I think of the way we develop our own products. If we have a strategic project that we need to work on, I mean, think of the UI project that I talked about this morning. We want to get that done fast, and we want to make sure it's done really well. So we're partnering. We're bringing in external consultants, basically, to help us with that, who can bring in expertise when we need it, and then you can go back to our normal level of scale. And the same can be true here, and you can look at professional services in that way. So I think, you know, what's going to happen is some of these enhanced workflow tools is it's a way of bringing these external professionals in as in a more seamless way so they integrate with your team. So in the end, and in summary, really, in the end, it's that users definitely need to be guided to an answer, and I think ultimately that is what a lot of products are now focusing on, getting a person to an answer. But I think that'll be in a combination of a few different ways. It could be an automated AI-based answer, which will be useful in some situations. It could be helping you find the right internal expert intelligently, routing you to the right person at the right time. How do I find that person? Maybe does the system understand what I'm trying to do and understand the problems I'm facing, send me to the right person. And then in some cases, if that internal person is not available, finding you the right external resource then to help you with that solution. So I'm now going to ask Dan Vedetta to come back up and help summarize our session.
Thanks, Paul. That was a lot of information to cover in a short segment, but I'd like to leave you with one last thought. Imagine just for a moment, imagine if Da Vinci would have had Derwent, or for that matter, Questel Orbit, or STN, or IFI Claims, or PatSnap, or Enography, or Watson, or Google, or any of the many wonderful tools and products in the market today. Just think if Da Vinci and his peers had had these tools in the 1400s, with the ability to search, to discover, share, license, and protect. What would the pace of innovation have looked like over those same 500 plus years? Now, when you think of all that has taken place since Monty Himes first started indexing patents back in 1951, and the influence that has had on the pace of innovation, then couple that with what is happening today with AI and the evolution of machine learning, with still much, much more to come, it's time for us to fasten our seatbelts, because the speed and velocity of innovation is ready to blast off, and dare I say, on an Elon Musk rocket. Exciting times ahead for you, the patent professional. Exciting times for us, the vendors that support you. But most importantly, exciting times for the people and companies that drive innovation. Thank you very much.